let me do a quick. And I'm just going to say that we've done the acknowledgement of country, and now I'm introducing Amanda Mace, who's our moderator today and my co-chair here at OZeWAI. Thanks, Amanda.
Problem. I'll try that again. My name is Amanda Mace. I'm co-chair of OZeWAI with Bree, and as my day job, I am vice president of AbleDocs Australasia, which is a digital accessibility firm. I'm a subject matter expert in digital accessibility and have been in the industry for 11 years. I'm really excited to host this panel today, to watch some of the demos that we have prepared for you, and particularly excited about the 3 panelists that we have. So Kylie, I'm going to start with you. Can you do a bit of an intro about you, your use of AT, and we'll get started from there, and then just pass on to either Tess or Scott.
Yeah, no problem. Hello, everyone. So I'm actually on the lands of the Toongattagal clan of the Darug Nation. So that's where I'm coming from today, and that's in Western Sydney. So if you hear the weird bogan Western Sydney accent, that's me to a T. So I've been working in the accessibility space for about 5 years now. I'm currently taking a bit of a break, a health break, from the work that I've been doing with an organisation known as TTC that works within Australia. I have lived experience of disability, so I have photosensitivity that can cause seizures. I have chronic daily migraines and cluster headaches, and if you haven't heard of cluster headaches, I encourage you to look that up online. It's not a fun condition, and it's fairly rare. It usually happens to more men, so I got the short straw. And I also at the moment have anxiety, an anxiety condition. Now, just for people to be aware, I do have treatment with my neurologist at the end of the week. So sometimes I may have some tics. So if I appear to zone out for a little bit, usually within about 30 seconds, I'll come back, and it's nothing to be concerned about. It's just a mild tic in the lead up to treatment. And for those interested, treatment is I actually have Botox every 3 months through my head, neck, and scalp. The average is 32 injections. I think I get about 40, and that kind of lasts for 3 months. So I use a bit of assistive tech or adaptive strategies, as I usually call them. So I have severe, because of my photosensitivity, I use blue light filters, and I make sure that my monitors all have blue light filtering. I do have variable eyesight because of my migraines with aura. So I do adjust things like my cursor size, my text size specifically, without zooming everything. So I still want my images to be crystal clear, but having that text bigger just makes it easier for me to read, and especially when I'm having cognitive disabilities, affecting me. Thanks, Amanda. I'll pass back to you.
Thanks, Kylie, for sharing. Tess, would you like to go ahead and give a bit of an intro?
Yes, thank you, Amanda. Yes, I'm assuming my audio is all good.
Perfect.
Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'm Tess, Tess Herbert. I live in Albury, so I believe that puts me in Wiradjuri country. I coordinate social content for OZeWAI, and I spend the rest of my time working on my first novel, about 3/4 of the way through that, so that's exciting. Of course, I always keep telling that to everyone who will listen. I've worked with accessibility consultancies, including Intopia, and I am totally blind, and I have been since birth. I am also neurodivergent and experience chronic anxiety. In terms of assistive technology that I use a screen reader, JAWS, and another screen reader, VoiceOver, for my iPhone. And sometimes I also use a braille display, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I can connect that to my computer and read whatever I want to read in braille. Like a couple of things like Kylie said, so I probably will be on mute for part of this unless I need to talk, just because with the questions being in chat, I don't want JAWS to disturb anyone. And also being neurodivergent, I really try hard not to, but I may occasionally rock. So if I do that, I apologize in advance, and that's all it'll be. And back to you, Amanda.
Thanks, Tess. And again, thank you for sharing. So last but not least, Scott, can you do also a bit of an intro and tell us a little bit about the assistive technology that you rely on?
Certainly. Hi, everyone. My name's Scott Nixon. I am on land of the Wiradjuri people of the Kulin Nation down here in Melbourne. It's my very great pleasure to be here today. I apologise that you can't see me. We're currently having some technical stuff done in the house and I wasn't able to use my video today. But just for a point of reference, I'm a heavyset middle-aged white man with a full beard. I am a design consultant for both physical and digital spaces. By saying that, I mean I can go to a site and tell people how to help make it more accessible for people with all forms of disabilities. And I also work with companies making sure that their websites are more accessible for people mostly with vision impairments because I am myself totally blind. I also experience anxiety. And I am here today to talk about my experiences using adaptive technology. I primarily use Apple products for my assistive tech. So I will be handling a lot of talk about the voiceover function, which Tess also uses. And I also occasionally use the free NVDA screen reader software, which is completely free and can be sourced online for anyone who wants to check it out. And I'm sure Bree can put the link to that in the chat as well. So that's me, that's us, let's roll.
Thank you so much, Scott. And Bree has shared a link with some links and our agenda for today in the main chat. So please feel free to go through to that and be able to review what we're doing. I think what's really important as part of today, before we get into our demo videos and asking questions of our wonderful panelists, is this difference between assistive technology in a testing environment for people who do it just for testing versus using it as a user and relying on it. And I think that's what I hope everyone gets out of today is watching assistive technology be used in a way that really helps you understand the end user who's using the assistive technology or the adaptive technology. So I think that's a really great takeaway from today, and I hope that everyone comes away with that. So with that in mind, I think we're going to start with Tess. We're going to look at some JAWS, and I believe we have a preempt video ready to go. Is that right?
That's correct.
Bree,
I've got it here ready to go.
From a tech point of view. All right.
All right, and I think I've got the sound going, so please let me know if it's not working. I can see you, Kylie, so just maybe if you nod yes or no that it's not working.
So at the moment, I think this might be Scott's video.
Okay, and so now I'm going to type
oh, I've got the wrong screen.
Search bar.
Just a minute, I've got the wrong screen then. Okay.
Wrong screen on.
Yeah, let me try again. Share sound, this one. That's it. Okay. Is that better?
Here we go. Yes.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
better. You may just want to full screen that.
Yep. And
Okay.
here we go. I'll just take it back to the start.
Okay. And so now I'm going to type Alt-D.
Alt-D, address and search bar
and
edit.
type in my web address.
Double period T dub TTERPCOM. Enter. /x-2 left.
And I
Left parent
have
4.
arrived at Twitter.
Left parent 4, right parent.
And now I press E to edit into the text box.
Post text edit. Blank.
Okay, just
Left
going to
parent
tab to make sure I'm in the forms mode.
Everyone can reply. Post text.
Okay.
I'm having trouble with the audio not playing. I think it's because it's loading, so I'm just going to keep trying
So
to play.
that little click has just said that I'm in the right box. So now I'm going to go back to my Word doc.
Yeah, this is not working.
Document.
Technology, hey?
Yeah, I'll have
Using
a look at my
Alt-Tab.
side, see if
Events,
what
get online screen share, Disability Royal Commission.
Disability Royal Commission.
Did you want to try, Kylie, from your side?
Yeah, I'm just pulling it up now.
It's obviously just taking a while to load, which is a bit weird.
I want.
Blank. People with the blank P.
Okay.
Blank P.
And here is my text.
Oh.
Yeah, I can
Do
take
it.
that
Bree, do you
out.
just want to pause the video for now?
Yeah.
Let's see if we can get another video up.
Yeah. I'll stop
That's
sharing.
okay. Sorry about that, everyone. We'll see if we can get
And
that
if you
video
get to
loading a
the
little bit faster.
50-second mark, it might help. So it might be my internet, which is a bit weird.
No problem. Let me just see if I can share my screen. Looks like mine's running okay.
And
share with sound.
for those that have access to the agenda, that you can get to the links on YouTube and in the Google folder. So if you do happen to miss some of this in here, feel free to jump in later to have a look yourself. So, okay, Kylie's sharing now.
Yep, so you can see the screen. Hopefully it's full size.
Not yet.
No.
It is just alerting me that it has crashed. So I may drop off. We'll see how this goes. Apologies, everyone. We tried to video because we knew that sometimes tech doesn't play too well with Zoom, and unfortunately still running into.
Yeah, what a shame. Look, in the meantime, while we sort out the tech side of things, and trying to get these videos to play, Tess, I guess, I mean, the purpose of your demo is really to show us through, well, putting something on Twitter, or X as it's now called. We won't make comments about that, but Tess, what's it like to edit Twitter? How accessible is it? Has it improved over time? Have you seen those differences?
So Amanda, do you mean like posting some content to Twitter?
Yeah.
It's difficult for me to say. So in my previous work, I wasn't. I would write the content, but somebody else would post it for the most part. So it's really only been in the previous year that I've been posting to Twitter on a regular basis. And I would say it is quite accessible. With there's a lot of screen reader feedback. So for example, when you go into I use the shortcut key, I pressed E to go into the edit box of Twitter, and then I copied and pasted the text from my Word document. And so I heard the click of the edit box, so I knew I was in the right place for posting the text. And then when it does post, you have to tab through a few options. When it does post, it always says, post was successful. The one thing I would say, and you may see this in the video, the one thing that I didn't, that isn't necessarily so accessible is that when you're trying to proofread your document, including your hashtags, when you're trying to proofread the text that you've included in the Twitter box, it often comes up with a combo box list of hashtags. And so if you arrow around the hashtag you've already written, then sometimes it can change to a different and to a similar hashtag. And so you have to be very, very careful that you don't arrow around your hashtags too much, and that you make sure that you select the correct hashtag, because I don't think I've ever posted content with the wrong hashtags before, but I've certainly come very close to it. So overall accessible, but yeah, probably a couple of little problems there.
Little usability items. I know too, and I can't remember if it happens on Twitter, but certainly with LinkedIn, the hashtags always, if you select from that auto-generated list as you're typing in your hashtag, it'll actually always take out the camel case. It'll take out the capital letters, which is really frustrating. I don't know if LinkedIn has any sort of intention of fixing that, and I can't remember if it happens on Twitter as well, but that is a little frustrating annoyance that you have to type it all out and you can't use your autocomplete if you want to. Thanks for that, Tess. Kylie, do you think we have the video up and ready to go? Should we give it another shot?
Yeah, unfortunately, I did try to do that and rejoin. It looks like I can't share the video while I've got Zoom running. I might be able to do a demonstration though. I can give that a shot if you'd like me to run you through my Windows configuration.
I think that's a great idea, Kylie, because then it's not a recording. And we do. I will try. And I'll try the snippet again with Scott on YouTube next time. We'll see if that works.
Yeah, no problem. So look, I'm going to share my screen, and I've got two screens at the moment, so I just need to make sure I'm sharing the right one. Oh, and yeah, it doesn't like my zoom levels, so let's see if we can just get the zoom off there. All right, so hopefully you are able to see my screen. We got a bit of
we're looking at your screen, yeah.
Yep. Desktop background of a pretty lady amongst garden by GDB Art.
Yeah, which is beautiful, by the way.
Fantastic. Yes, I'm a big fan of GDB Art. She's a very talented artist and looks at more diverse artwork, which is fantastic. So when I am setting up my machine so that I can do anything really, the first thing that I will do is I'll right click on my desktop and then I'll go into my display properties. So when I bring up my display settings, you'll see that I have 2 monitors. Normally I have 3 monitors. However, what I've found is my CPU doesn't handle running 3 monitors and Zoom. So I always disconnect one when I'm using Zoom. So when I want to set this up, my primary monitor is the one that I'm showing now. So I'm just identifying it here and can see that it's 2. So that I select which monitor I actually want to make changes to. So this is the good thing with Windows is you can actually make a different change for each monitor. And that's really important for me because my laptop monitor, I need to increase to a much higher size than what I do for, you know, my large widescreen monitor that's in front of me. So some of the things that I do, which I'd actually turned off today, so if I did have to show live, I have scheduling for a night light. So there's an interesting trick with this one that I want to show people. So if I turn this night light off, it actually will still run. So if you go and have a look at your night light settings, they're most likely scheduled, and usually they schedule them for around what they think is sunset and then what they think is sunrise. I don't schedule it because I tend to run with this night mode all the time. And the reason for that is it reduces the blue light that's coming through my monitor, which can affect me and cause my seizures and increase my chronic pain. So usually when you're using the night light, it'll sit somewhere around this 15. And unfortunately, it's a little bit hard to see on this monitor while I'm changing it. But if I go to the extremes, you should be able to see, and just give me a head nod if you're able to see that, Amanda, that the color is changing. Yeah, so usually people just have it this little bit, and it's, for me, that's not noticeable. So I tend to sit it around, you know, the 40 to 50 mark, just so that it is much more pleasant for my eyes. Now, if I hit turn on, it actually turns it on now, and it's already applying this change. However, if I come back here, it indicates that night light is off. So this is a bug in the Windows system. I have tried to lodge it, but I haven't had any feedback yet from Microsoft around what's going on with this. Most people that are using night light are only using it in the evening hours. Now, the other things that I look at is, as you can see here, I've got my text and app size increased to 125% on this screen. If I were to jump onto my other screen, you'll see that it's about 300%. Usually I sit that screen at 400%, but again, it doesn't play well with Zoom. So you have to learn to work around these things. I think that's what you'll find. Anyone that uses assistive tech, they're going to run into problems where some applications just don't work as you would like them to. Now, everything else I kind of leave the same here, but if you notice on my screen, I have a very large cursor. And if you notice in my text box, I have a really high icon indicating that I'm typing. So that way I can find where my cursor is on the screen. So the next things that I would normally come and I would look at is I would look at ease of access. And usually that will bring it up, but it hasn't. So if you're coming into the ease of access settings, this is actually a completely different setting item. Why they don't have it under display, I don't know, but they like to hide it. So I always search for it. You can also come in here and change things like your text size. So even though I've got it at 125%, that zooms everything to 125%. I then come in and I also just zoom my text size individually. So you can see it's currently sitting at 140 and there's a little sample box here. So if I increase, you'll see as the text size increases. And then what most people are sitting down is at the normal 100, but I do struggle to read that. So I always leave it around at that sort of 140 mark. So I'll just put it back onto that. You can change the brightness of your display. So this is the brightness of my display when I don't have additional filtering on it. So if my night mode wasn't on, then this is kind of what my display brightness would be. It could be a little challenging for you guys to see from time to time. And I do apologize for that, but you know, I do need to be able to see the present. So the other thing that you're probably noticing, if you're going into these properties, everything's probably on a white background. Because of my sensitivity, I always make sure I use dark mode. So anything that I'm doing, even on my mobile phone, and there is a video without any narration, but just showing how I set up my mobile phone, will show you that it's on dark mode. Now, the mouse properties are the interesting one. So that's where you come down here and you can increase your pointer size. And as you can see, I've got my pointer probably a lot higher than most people would. And because I do struggle with the different contrast, I set it to a particular color. So there's other settings that you can have here. You can put it straight back to your normal, white color setting. You can specify the particular color that you're after, or you can do an inverted. And what the inverted is when you're going over something in a different color, you can see here it does change and the mouse is a little bit see-through. Now, personally, I find that a little bit difficult to work with, which is why I tend to just go back into the standard and put it straight onto this yellow that stands out for me. The other thing that I've got set on here at the moment is that cursor size. So again, usually by default, your cursor is either going to be white or black. And that's when you click into any text box, when you click onto, a Microsoft Word document, anything like that, you'd normally just see it as a blinking cursor. Now, often I don't see that blinking cursor. And when I'm doing accessibility testing and using a screen reader, I can't see that cursor at all when people don't have the correct focus that's put on their website. So to alleviate that, that's why I increase it. And that's why when you can see me clicking into different text boxes and why it doesn't work on these dialogues, I don't really know, but it's kind of showing you here as well. You can change the thickness of it. So if I do that and then I click here, you'll see it's quite thicker. Personally, that I find difficult to work with, so I tend to leave it at the same thickness, but just having that little extra purple highlight makes it so much more easy for me to work. Just because I know we're still having trouble with videos, I might go on a few other things that I don't necessarily use, but people can set. So there is a high contrast mode. So like I said, I prefer to use a black scheme. So I'm currently on a black theme and that's set elsewhere, but you can come here and you can turn on high contrast. And I didn't realize it was going to do that. So hopefully you haven't lost me.
So Kylie, we've lost your screen, but that's brilliant. Thank you. Amanda, do we try another video now as well and then go to Scott?
Oh, I just think in the meantime, while poor Tess's, or not Tess's, Kylie's screen is doing its thing and telling us to please wait. Kylie, are there any challenges that you find once you've set these settings that are made worse when you're trying to use software, websites, documents that are made worse just because people haven't done the right thing on their end?
That's a really interesting question. So definitely I do run into issues where they don't work. Sadly, one of the big issues that I run into is a tool that everyone uses in accessibility. So the color contrast analyzer application does not work for me. So what I need to do is if I want to use the color contrast analyzer, I have to actually use a plugin, and that's one moment. It's jumping onto my other screen, so hopefully I can bring that back over. So this is one of the common things that you're going to see as I move from screens with different text size increase and different increases. It does sometimes cause it problems with identifying and updating. So when that happens, I just kind of have to move it back and hope for the best. And at the moment I am in a high contrast because I did turn that on and I'm not going to turn it back off because you'll lose my screen again. But when I want to use the color contrast analyzer, the picker doesn't work. So the color picker will be off. So if I were to be here on Google, for example, you're not going to see white. What you're going to actually see is I'm probably going to be over here because it can't figure out the size manipulations. So whenever I want to use the color contrast analyzer to check color contrast, I actually have to use this tool, which is a plugin instead. This tool actually doesn't have that, and I bet you today, just to prove me wrong, it's not going to work, but this one has never caused me an issue. So you can see here my mouse is correctly over the Google. I can select it and it's going to choose the color. Now it's not showing you all the colors correctly here because you're in a high contrast color palette at the moment, but this does actually work for me and allows me to work around it. So that's one of the challenges that you have. And sometimes when I am doing accessibility testing, I do find a lot of those tools just don't operate as I expect. So sometimes I have to move all of my settings back down and have a sort of squint and get very close to the screen to be able to see what I need. And that's just kind of common and accepted. The other thing is that often, so I didn't show you, but I do set captions. So I change how my captions are displayed. And I really need to get back to my desktop. There we go. So if I go back into those display settings and the ease of access, I do set my closed captions here. And so you can see again, the closed captions, I always make sure that they're on a black box and that they're white. And I increase the caption size from the defaults. Now this works really, really well when I'm playing video through Windows, but if I'm playing videos through things like YouTube, those captions don't increase for me. So they still adhere to what YouTube has listed. So that's probably the other big issue I run into.
That's really interesting, and what an interesting point around assistive technology tools. And I actually want to extend that question specifically around tools for accessibility specialists like the color contrast analyzer to Scott and Tess. Do you find that tools that are typically used by accessibility testers that just don't work with your assistive technology? So Tess, why don't you go first, and then Scott.
Okay.
I'm sorry, and then could you repeat the question? It's just my screen reader talked over some of it.
No, that's okay. So what I want to know is if the screen reader struggles with some of those accessibility testing tools that you know, as typical accessibility testers use, like the color contrast analyzer.
It's not really a question, guys, because I've only ever worked in the marketing area of accessibility. I've never done the accessibility testing work. My role has always been creating the social media and marketing content. So it might be something that Scott may find easier to answer than I do. I have been an accessibility tester, you know, a user research tester, but I've never used testing tools myself.
Fair enough. Scott, how about you?
Well, at the end of the day, it all comes down to what you're trying to test with, what you're actually testing. There are often times when the testing that you're doing requires a bit of modification to your usual workflow in order to get the exact information that the company want from the testing. And in cases like that, I always make sure to leave a little bit of extra time in testing sessions where I sit down with whatever devs are available at the time, whatever staff from the developing team are there, and give them information about, okay, you want me to be able to do A, B, and C, but because of the program that we were using for testing, I could really only do C comfortably, and A and B needed a lot more work. So maybe we use a different setup next time to do testing, or maybe we look at it a different way or modify it in some way so that it's actually easier to do. So yeah, there is sometimes which is really no one person's fault. It's just that not every program is going to be able to test every other program out there. So you just really have to go in and find out exactly what's going on and be calm and collected and give tips on how they can improve it moving forward.
I find it really interesting working for an accessibility firm as well that has software, how accessible those softwares are. So we create VPATs because the Americans need VPATs when they're using our software. And I don't know, I'm trying to look at the list of people if anyone wants to add into the chat of software that they use to check accessibility that they find actually a little bit inaccessible itself. If that's something that as an industry we need to approach and try and do a little bit better and suggest improvements in those areas. I think that's a really important part, in particular because we want more people with disability using adaptive and assistive technology to do testing in accessibility so we can get real-time feedback. That aside, so I know the videos aren't working. Kylie, do we want to try and give it another shot, or do we want to move on?
I can try the YouTube one if you like.
I wonder, would it be helpful at any time, obviously you guys have Scott's video as well, but would it be helpful at any time for me to do a short screen reader demo of Twitter if you can't get the video up? Because I know tech, it can be very, difficult. So if it would help, I'd be more than happy to do a quick, JAWS.
Do we want to try a live demo then?
Yeah, or if even if you've got LinkedIn up, because we saw a little bit of the Twitter one. So whichever one's easiest for you.
Yeah, of course, I can pretend to post. Well, I don't actually have anything ready to post, but I can go through the steps as though I am.
Okay,
That would
sounds
be
good.
If that would be
fantastic.
helpful, though. If it wouldn't, that's completely no problem.
No, I think it would be great.
And you're able to share your screen?
Yes, most certainly.
Cool. Okay, let's try it.
Okay, so sound. Now, is
Screen share.
working?
Share pre.
Yeah, we can currently see your Zoom in your browser.
Share.
That's okay. I don't have. I've just got to go into
Leaving.
Google now. If the JAWS is too fast for anyone, let me know because I can easily slow it down. This is about the speed I normally use. It's not massively fast like some of my blind friends, but not particularly not particularly slow either.
Search box.
So now I'm going to go into Google Chrome.
G. Google
Press
Chrome.
G for
Press
Google
right
Chrome
plus
after I
enter.
press the Windows key,
Selected.
and I'm going to type into the address bar. So Alt D.
Alt D. W. Double
Is that working?
W. Period.
Yes, it
L.
is.
W. I. N.
Actually, I don't want to do that. What I want to do is I want to go into Google.
Enter.
Because normally when I post it depends what LinkedIn account I'm posting to. If I'm posting to mine, I'll go straight to the LinkedIn main page. If I'm posting to OZeWAI, I will normally Google the OZeWAI LinkedIn page to make sure I'm posting to the right place.
OZeWAI.
LinkedIn, so I'm just typing into Google.
Enter.
And that little click is just to say that I'm out of forms field. So now I go to the top of the document, Control Home, and I'm going to navigate via headings. So I use the H key. So I'm using JAWS, and it's really handy if I can navigate via headings because it only takes one key and I don't have to use the arrow keys too much. So H.
OZeWAI visited heading left enter.
Okay, so now I'm in OZeWAI. So now I don't have anything particularly to post, but let's say I do. Let's say I'm posting our Get Online Week social content. So
search box edit.
Going into pressing the Windows key, I'm going into my documents. So now I'm looking for OZeWAI.
OZeWAI Get Online Week social enter.
Yeah,
backup this
document.
document.
Right, and obviously I'm not actually going to post this, but I'm going to tab back to LinkedIn.
Left parent 20.
And now I'm going to use virtual find, which is a really handy thing in JAWS because for a screen reader user, there's nothing worse than having to arrow or tab around a page when you're not really sure where things are because it just takes so much time and we all, got stuff to do. So Control F.
Virtual find. JAWS C.
Create.
REATE. Enter. Create button.
Create button. So I'm going to press that.
Enter. Create dialog.
That opens a dialog box, which is really, really good.
Dismiss but heading level 2 create.
So what I'm looking for is
list of 6 links. Start a post.
Start a post. We've got a list of things, and thankfully, start a post is right at the top. So I'm going to enter on that.
Enter. Create dialog. Dialog content.
So you may have heard a click from the edit box. I hope JAWS is at an okay volume. If it's not, I can turn it up.
It's good for us, I think, and it's good for the recording too. Thanks. Thanks, Tess.
No problem. No problem. All right. So you will have heard the click. Now that tells me that I'm in a form field. So, and obviously I'm not going to post this twice, Bree and Kylie, so it's all good. What I would have done is I would have tabbed to, so I'm going to tab to the document.
Left OZeWAI Get Online.
There we go. There's my content. And I would arrow down. Because often I have Twitter and LinkedIn in the same folder, in the same file. So what I would do is I would select the content that I'm looking for. That's Shift and down arrow, Control C. And now if I wanted to paste this into a LinkedIn post, which I don't, I would use Control V for post. So that's some more JAWS shortcuts. But I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is I'm going to tab around in this field. Where are we?
OZeWAI Get JAWS left parent.
Here we are. We're in LinkedIn.
List. Escape. Link 200.
I may actually have to paste it, but I won't press post.
Left parent.
I'll just shut it.
And Tess, if you do, it doesn't matter, or we can always delete it. It's fine,
Yes.
or we can edit it. It doesn't matter. You go for it.
No problem. All right, so I'll create. I'll have to press create again. LinkedIn is a bit tricky like that. If you press escape or you try to you tab around, it can take you out of the create dialog box, which is okay because you can always get back in, but it would be good if it didn't do that.
View as mem navigation region. View as mem list of link current feed.
Create,
Virtual
I want
find.
create.
Enter. Create a poll. Enter.
No,
Left
no, I
parent
don't want to do that.
24.
Oh dear. Okay, here we go.
Alert. This site can access your link mode is OZeWAI
Type
news.
into LinkedIn.
Link mode is OZeWAI. Enter.
Okay, now
OZeWAI.
create,
LinkedIn.
create,
Virtual CREATE. Enter. Create. Create button.
create
Enter.
button,
Create dialog. Dismiss
and
heading level 2. Create. List of 6 links. Start a
start
post.
a
Enter.
post,
Left parent
and
24.
it's taking me into edit. So now I'm going to press Control V,
Paste it from clipboard. Y11.
and there are my hashtags.
L.
And I'm careful not to arrow too much around the hashtags because, as I say, it can lead to a bit of a combo box situation, and the hashtags can change. So now, for the sake of argument, I'm going to tab out of this.
Edit media preview button.
Edit media preview. So I suppose that would be if I was attaching a video.
Remove media button.
Remove.
Open article OZeWAI.
Now, open article, that's a good tab because what that tells me is that the link has worked. Because in the actual, whether it be at Twitter or LinkedIn, the link doesn't actually show as a link when I'm proofreading it after I've pasted it into the edit box, if that makes sense. So the only way that I can see if the link has worked is either by looking at it in the Word document or looking at the open article button. So that's a very handy button. So now tabbing along.
Open article
Open article.
Open emoji keyboard
Open
button.
emoji.
Schedule post button.
As you can see, it's very, the tabs are very well labeled. The options are very well labeled.
Post button.
Now, I'm not going to post. That's the post button. Now, if I pressed enter, it would make a ding ding noise, which is really fantastic because it tells me that I have posted it. And the same with Twitter. Twitter always says your post was successful. And that's really, really important because, yeah, feedback and messages to let you know, if something's being posted or if there's an error. It's really, really important for screen reader users because then we can go back and fix things if it hasn't been successful. But we can only know that if we've got a message or a label, some text telling us what to do or what's been done. So now I'm going to close that because we don't want to post it twice. And that's pretty much it, I believe.
Cancel leave button to
and I've
activate.
pressed leave to leave.
Space and
OZeWAI. So I think that's basically that's pretty much a demonstration of me posting something to LinkedIn, and I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, no, it really is. And what really strikes me, Tess, is the amount of shortcuts that you use. And it reminds me immediately of the importance. There's a success criterion 2.1 around making sure we don't override shortcuts or provide the ability to adjust shortcuts, because this is something that you very clearly, even in just posting on LinkedIn, utilize frequently using JAWS.
Definitely. And I mean, even when part of my job is also reposting, retweeting or reposting. Some of our content is based on articles that have already been written or posts that have already been shared, and sharing that to our OZeWAI members, users, readers. And so the best way for me to navigate LinkedIn is by using the JAWS shortcut key H for headings, because you can navigate the different feed posts by headings. And it's really, really useful. And in the same way, Control F, virtual find, copy and paste, like there are so many shortcuts that just make life so much easier. Because when I first used JAWS, years and years and years ago, I was really, really slow because I didn't know all the shortcuts. And so, I probably took twice the amount of time to complete a task that, might have taken me, 2 minutes, and instead it took 5 or 6 minutes. So yeah, these shortcuts are really, really important. Oh, now I'm going to turn off my screen unless there's anything else you need me to show.
No, I think that's really fantastic and so helpful to see how it's utilized from a JAWS point of view. Scott, listening into how JAWS is doing it, is there a massive difference between JAWS and say VoiceOver and the way that VoiceOver works with social media in particular?
Really, it's comparing apples with oranges in a way, because JAWS and VoiceOver are two so vastly different operating systems. Tess, your JAWS is still running. There we go.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
That's all right. That's all right.
Just
just to
find the button.
Just to repeat, yeah, JAWS and VoiceOver are such totally different operating systems on vastly different pieces of technology. JAWS is for for PCs and laptops, and VoiceOver is for iPhones, iPads, Apple TVs, Apple Watches, things like that. For me, when it comes to posting on the Bird app, as I like to call it and shall ever call it, I basically just open the app, take my, because like with the touch screen, you just run your finger down to the bottom right hand corner of the screen where it says create post, double tap on that, and then you're instantly into the post creation section. You're already in the edit box, so you just type up your message. You can flick down through the screen using a one finger swipe to see how many characters you have left, or there is, if you're using an iPhone, for example, a haptic feedback, which will give you a little buzz when it tells you you have 20 characters left, and then a more intense buzz when you've run out of characters for that particular post. And when it comes to creating hashtags with the proper camel case lettering, and for those who don't know what camel case is, it's each word starts with a capital. So if you had "My day has been fun," you capitalize the first letter of each word while still keeping it as one continuous word. And that way people using assistive technology can find those hashtags a lot more easily. If I start typing in a hashtag, a list does pop up underneath my post, which has suggestions of completed hashtags that have been made, where I can go, okay, well, that's what I wanted to say. I don't have time to type it out right now, so I'll just double tap on that and it will auto complete the hashtag for me. And then I move my finger up to the top right hand corner of the screen and tap the post button, and there it goes. So yeah, really it is, it's a night and day difference. I'm not going to say one is better than the other, but for myself, VoiceOver is the far easier way for me to organize my my posting experiences in social media.
Is that particular to mobile devices? So, for example, the way a Mac uses VoiceOver, obviously with a keyboard generally attached to a Mac, do you find that there's an enormous difference, or are you using a PC as well instead of a Mac? Are we Apple all the way?
I'm Apple all the way. I do have a Windows laptop, but I don't use social media through my laptop. I only ever use it through my mobile devices, either my phone or my iPad, because I find that the interface for the Bird app is a little bit clunky online on Windows. Maybe that's just because I haven't taken the time to learn how to use the NVDA screen reader to its fullest capability in that space. But that, again, is simply because I find, having used the Apple suite of products for the past 10 years, I find that to just be a simpler way of doing things. And I can connect a Bluetooth keyboard to my iPhone or my iPad in order to be able to type out a message, which is even faster than typing it on the screen that way.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just thinking, Kylie, going back to some of the shortcuts that you used, and when you're posting on social media, I'm curious what barriers you find, because it is a different, the OZeWAI cat's in the screen again. It's a different experience for you as well. There's a lot of movement on social media, auto-played videos, GIFs that go and never stop. What are the things that you find there are barriers and challenges from a social media perspective?
Yeah, so I mean, I think it's something that both Tess and Scott have sort of touched on, just the cognitive load that you have when you're using any kind of assistive tech or adaptive strategies. It really makes a huge difference. So, before I started having vision problems, using any kind of tools, I was never concerned about it. But now, because I do run into those issues, and especially with the seizures in particular, I've got to always be on alert, figuring out how I set this, and it's always, you know, on the onus is always on the person, unfortunately, that's using the assistive tech. So when it comes to things like social media, I don't use a lot of social media to begin with. I use a bit of Facebook just personally with, you know, for family, and I use LinkedIn, and that's it. And from my side of things, I'm with Scott. I don't use LinkedIn on my PC. I always do it from my phone because I find that the interface is easier for me to use. When I have to do it from my PC, I actually can't find the post button half the time. And I do find that it's a lot easier just being able to change the text size. That works on the mobile phone much better than it does. I found on straight through the, you know, same browsers, because I use Chrome on my mobile phone and on Windows, but I just find it works much better through the mobile side. So that's, you know, sort of my interactions. The other things that I do find a little bit challenging is around, like you said, those moving animations. Even so, since I've been having difficulties with my CPTSD and my anxiety, my attention span is not as good as it used to be. And so when videos autoplay, my eyes will immediately go to them. If I see an animated GIF, I will immediately focus on it. And if it continues to run, I really struggle to consume any other information. So one of the things like I do at the moment is I'm learning better if I'm seeing and hearing something at the same time. And even at web directions, when we were at web directions, trying to follow when people changed the slides, I'd lose part of what they were saying because I was too busy following what was happening on the slide, especially when there was a, you know, a image or a, like most of us do, having something suddenly appear onto the screen because you don't want it to come out before you've said it. That distracts me and I lose track of what's going on.
That's a really good point, because we do have a lot of these from a design point of view. I'm seeing this this trend around trying to grab your attention, and unfortunately sometimes it's doing it in a really negative way. What you really want is just to be able to absorb the content. You know, I'm thinking now, social media and movement within social media and sort of grabbing people's attention. And one of the industries that's really making strides in accessibility, maybe not as far as we'd like, but it's gaming, the gaming industry, and ensuring that those are accessible experiences. I'm going to start with Scott here, but then Tess and Kylie, I'm interested in both of your feedback as well. Scott, is there anything in the gaming industry that you've seen over the last probably 5 years? There's been a real push to do gaming more accessibly. Is there anything that you've seen that you've a barrier or even just improvements?
Vast improvement in the world of gaming, even over the past 3 years. When I was a younger man, I still had usable vision up until about the age of 22. And I used to be big into video games, and we're talking in the late 80s, mid 1990s. So Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Mega Drive, that sort of thing. But then I had to give up because my eyes just got too bad and I wasn't able to do it anymore. And it was a big part of my life that I had to give up. 3 weeks ago, I bought myself the latest Sony PlayStation 5. That is because the accessibility features that they have been able to put into these new generation systems has come so far that I am now actually able to operate this new PlayStation completely independently, because it has a screen reader function that allows me to navigate all menus and all features of the device. And several of the biggest games out there at the moment now have accessibility features. Say, for example, I'm exploring a city looking for zombies in The Last of Us Part 1. I can navigate to certain sections via accessibility buttons, which they have a special menu for on the game. You enter those in, you toggle them to on, and you can navigate to where the best path is. You can navigate to where special items are for you to pick up, and it also helps you navigate during fights with zombies. So it has enabled me to, after 25 years, return to video gaming, and it really, like, the past month for me has been an absolute revelation, because I've been able to get back into it. And yes, there are still barriers that do come up. Not every game is going to be as accessible as some of these more advanced ones, but a lot of companies are noticing that the disability community are picking up on these things, and particularly the blind community now, because for video games with stories where they have cutscenes which tell you a bit of the story before you go back into the action where you have to control the character, they're now actually providing audio description for those cutscenes so you can know exactly what's going on. So it's like watching a movie, and then every now and then you're thrown into the action and have to do the character's job yourself. So that has really been a fantastic advancement in the field. There are still things that need to be improved. There are still ways to go, but that can be said about anything. But for gaming at the moment, we are really living in, I'm not going to say a golden age, but it's definitely getting up there where people with all forms of disability are able to get back into gaming and share the experience along with everyone else around the world. And the companies, both the companies who make the hardware and the companies who create the games, are very, very open and very, very receptive to all forms of feedback from the disability community.
So exciting to hear that as well. You know, I just say before I jump to you, Tess, is that in 2017, I did a presentation at OZeWAI around accessible gaming on the back of my brother, much younger brother, coming to visit, saying that he wanted some help telling my parents that he wasn't going to do uni. Instead, he was going to become a professional League of Legends coach, which is a multiplayer online battle game. I didn't know what that was at the time, and it led me down a rabbit hole that I now can't get out of. And of course, it's just been really, like you said, in the last 5-6 years, the path has just been incredible. But Tess, what's your? I don't know if you're a gamer at all, Tess, but what's been your experience?
Oh, I'm not a gamer. I've never played a game. But what I do know, because part of my job a couple of years ago with Intopia, or last year, was collecting, news items for social media, and a lot of it would be new developments in accessible technology. And a lot of the things that I saw were about, how Sony was making their PlayStation games more accessible, using features like color contrast and audio description and screen reader feedback. And so, although I don't think I've ever played a computer game, that has really, that really kind of showed me that, things that I would never have thought that I could ever, when my brothers and sisters used to play Nintendo, I never thought that I could actually, be a part of that. But it's great to know that this younger generation will be able to do that more, because there's just so many advances in accessibility. So yeah, I'm not a gamer, but that's kind of how I found out about it.
Could I just?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Could I just? Yeah, if I could just quickly jump on the back of what Tess was saying there, the ability to make connections with people through gaming and through these accessibility features has been incredible. My former partner's eldest son is a huge gamer. It is absolutely his life. He's just turned 18. And I could never really connect with him when my partner and I were together, because he was very into gaming. I couldn't play them, so we really couldn't find that sort of common ground. Last weekend, he came up to the house. I showed him the PlayStation. We got online. We played a few games together. And for the first time in the nearly 10 years that I've known him, he and I were able to connect on that really deep level of the thing that he enjoys was the thing that I was able to enjoy as well. And that was, for me, just such a beautiful moment. And I'm never going to be able to stop thanking the video game industry for giving me the opportunity to be able to just have just that one moment with this kid who I've always loved to death. And finally to be able to make that final great connection with him was just absolutely unbelievable.
I love that story, Scott. That's actually just so beautiful. And it really highlights the importance of gaming outside of, entertainment. It's actually the connections that you make with people. And there's lots of research to back this up, but one of the studies that came out of America talked about the increased happiness that you get so out of gaming, which basically had to do with the idea of effort versus and reward. Is that in life sometimes you can put in heaps of effort and never be rewarded, but with gaming you always have that opportunity to get rewarded, and you can keep going back. And there's it can help with things like depression and social circles, broadening social circles, allowing for it's just fantastic. Kylie, really quickly from you, and then I think we're going to give we're going to give Scott's demo a try. We think we might have this working, but Kylie, gaming, is this something that you do, or areas, because it would be a different experience from the screen reader experience?
Yeah, so I stopped playing computer games because I'm going to show my age now, but one of my friends was like Australian champion for Counter-Strike. And it was no fun after that, right? Because I could not keep up. But I'm a giant kid, so I love Time Zone and I will go there whenever I can. And one of my friends from uni actually does programming for the virtual reality. So he does one for
to clarify for our non-Australian audience, I know we do have a few here. I think Jock was in here earlier, and Lucy's from Canada. Time Zone is an arcade type place.
Yes, with giant claw machines that you can win toys out of things, and you have like old school pinball as well, and all kinds of fun interactive games. Probably half are physical games like Knock 'em Down Clowns, and then the other half are sort of video games. So the ones that are on the screens I really enjoy, but there are some I have to avoid. Ones that have contrast that goes from high to low. So one of the ones that I see is a Jurassic Park game, and it's a shoot 'em first person style game, but they go from very blinding light down to really dark, and that causes problems for me. And also the virtual reality stuff, which, my friend, like I said, codes, I actually can't play. So I have trouble seeing 3D movies. I don't see the 3D part of them. So when people see, an arm come over, it doesn't work for me. And then what I've found is when I put those virtual reality headsets on and I try to watch them, unfortunately, they do often tend to cause mild seizure. So for me, I don't lose consciousness. I don't have a fit, but what basically happens is I can lose control of my fine and gross motor control skills. I cannot talk for a period of time, and if I'm in a virtual reality thing, I can't get up, I can't stand up, I need assistance. So it unfortunately limits what I do, so I tend to stick to the more physical ones.
Yeah, no, fair enough. Look, a couple of things. I think we are going to move to the video, just to give our wonderful panelists a bit of a break from talking. I think we're putting quite a cognitive load with all of my questions. So I think at this point, Bree is going to try and share her screen and share Scott's video. So let's have a go at that and see how we go.
Okay, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, let's try again. So this is wonderful video that Scott made for Get Online Week a couple of years ago, and we've all decided that it needs an update. But it's still so well done. We had the wonderful web directions team connect us with someone who did the visuals for us. But it's all got a step-by-step approach. So and then we'll come back and we'll ask Scott some questions, and we'll see if this works.
Start on your iPhone voiceover journey would be using Google.
Yeah, it'll just keep stopping.
Which is
that's unfortunate. Yeah, and yeah, sorry about that. But everyone has links to these. I totally recommend jumping on those links later. There's some longer ones, some shorter ones. Kylie, did you want to try one of yours, the one with the one that's just a video without the sound? Don't know if we want to try that. And then otherwise, and if anyone needs a break, feel free to stretch your legs or grab a cup of tea while we're doing this tech. But we will come back to some more questions. There's so much to cover here. And if you do have questions, please put them in the chat as well. Maybe you've got something specific for the different types of screen readers that people are using.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, Brie, I think with technology letting us down, we obviously didn't pray to the technology gods hard enough this morning. Maybe what we can do is just have it sort of morph into a Q&A from the audience and see if there are any questions coming from the audience in particular. And then, you know, if we end a little bit sooner today than initially planned, we know it was the technology that let us down. And yeah, I think I could probably ask questions forever. So I really want to give everyone an opportunity. Are there any questions from people attending today?
And feel free to put your hand up or your question in the chat as well.
Yeah, whatever makes you most comfortable.
Okay, go Jock.
Yeah, I spoke recently with the people from JAWS, and this is new to me. My audience has not, the back of my mind has not been people who are visually disabled, but now I understand that to be honest and good with my website overall, I need to have it to be totally accessible by blind people. I was surprised that the JAWS program only operates on Windows. And I asked him, I said, well, that's wonderful, but what if we have website visitors who are using MacBooks or Apple tablets? And the answer that I got was, well, we're thinking about that, but I don't see any alternative to JAWS. Am I incorrect? I
think Scott probably could help with that. Sorry, Amanda, you go.
No, let Scott answer. That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's a very difficult discussion that has to be had, simply because a lot of say you've got JAWS on one side, you've got VoiceOver on the other. Think of it as the Jets and the Sharks. They're never going to meet in the middle. You're never going to have something that's going to work for both of them at the same time. So unfortunately, you're going to need to work on the website so that it is accessible for JAWS and is accessible for VoiceOver. And also, it's a very good idea, but 90% of the time it's okay, making sure that the website is accessible for the free screen reader program NVDA. Now, that is an JAWS alternative that is completely free, open source, and everyone is able to use it for no cost at all. The Australian book guys who invented it, they did a story on Australian story on the ABC a couple of months ago. If you look back far enough on the iView player, their story is there. And that screen reader is very similar to JAWS, has a lot of the same features, does a lot of the same jobs as JAWS does. And they're always taking the opportunity to expand and build on the knowledge that they have and the things that they can do. Someone will contact them and say, okay, website A, I can't get into this particular part, and they'll go off and write a code, dump it in the next update of NVDA, and you can have it working inside a couple of weeks. So it is unfortunate, but you have to keep rolling with the changes and the adaptations and the methods that people are using to make websites more accessible for themselves. You as a site provider need to try and stay as up to date as you can and make the websites more accessible for all the burgeoning technologies out there that people are using in the methods of assistive technology. Never just say, okay, well, it works on JAWS, that's fine. That's never going to be enough.
I have a follow-up question.
Yes, go ahead, Jock.
My designer and my developer are both in Switzerland. They're excellent. It has taken me, I've been working on this project for 7 years. I'm very happy with these two guys. They speak in French, but I speak the French also. My question has to do with, I'm in the design to development handoff stage. Okay. Do I tell my developer to use NVIDIA? If I say that to him, is that going to be a surprise to him? Is it complicated?
Yeah, it may complicate matters. But then again, it may not. It's simply a matter of sitting down with them and explaining to them exactly what you want. exactly how we need, how you need to make this as fully accessible for as many people as humanly possible. The only advice I will give you, because I don't know the specific circumstances of your case, Jock, is if they offer to use what they call an accessibility overlay, do not use it, because accessibility overlays are the devil.
Yeah, I agree.
I could,
Yeah. Yeah, there is actually quite a bit of litigation going on at the moment regarding accessibility overlays. And for people who don't know what they are special modals which people can paste onto a page that claim they can make the website page more accessible for people with all sorts of screen readers. And 9 times out of 10, the emperor has no clothes, if you catch my drift.
Absolutely.
One of the things I just want to quickly add. Oh, sorry, Kylie.
Yeah, I was going to say, just to weigh in, so I do a lot of auditing. So, checking that websites are accessible, and I do a lot of testing around that. And look, as a minimum, I always look at, you need to at least use one of JAWS and NVDA. You need to use VoiceOver, but you need to do it on both iPhone and on Mac, because they do actually operate a little bit differently. And then you need to make sure you use TalkBack as well, which is your Android, basically inbuilt. Now, when it comes down to designing for tech, what you really need to understand is the rules and the guidelines behind the system. So it's not always important to test on everyone. Like I said, as a minimum, I would recommend Fork, which is your 2 voiceovers, your TalkBack, and then either NVDA or JAWS. But what you really want to have is an expert that understands the difference between those screen readers and how they're going to work. Because if you're paving it correctly, every road works the same way. People just drive on a different side, right? And as you're going through the countryside, you might see a lot of trees, whereas if you're going through the city, you're going to see a lot of buildings. I kind of look at it as at that kind of level. People operating at those screen readers are going to know a lot more about their favorite screen reader. And what you'll actually find is, if you go and have a look, there's actually been screen studies done. It's only on a very small amount of sample size, but generally a lot of people using screen readers will use more than one. And that could be because they're on a Windows machine for work and they're on a Mac at home, or they're on an iPhone or an Android phone and then they're using Mac or Windows. So it's more important to understand the concepts behind the scenes and try to build it accessibly like that.
Exactly. It may mean you have to take a little bit more time in the development phase. It may mean you have to bring a couple more people on. I know it sucks because, you've got cost and you've got timelines and crunches and everything that you have to do. But at the end of the day, you have to think about it. The disability community, we are very vocal about what we need. And we also have great loyalty and very deep pockets. So if you create something that's going to work for as many of us as humanly possible, you're going to end up getting more money at the end of the day, and the website you create is going to be more successful. So yeah, you absolutely have to think of as many as you can and just try your best to get as much involved. Yeah, someone just said in the message, it's better to create now than fix later. Absolutely.
Yeah, and there are plenty of case studies to show that. Jock, those are really good questions. And my only add to that is that, and I think Andrew Downey said it earlier, is that when you use best practice for your code, it's always going to work better regardless of the assistive technology, because technology in general is accessing the content via the code. So programmatically, it needs to be right. And that will always give you a better result. Megan, you've had your hand up for a while. What's your question?
Yeah, hi, can you hear me?
Yep,
cool. Yeah, I just wanted to reiterate what I put in the chat there. As an instructional designer, one of the key takeaways for me from today is, that testing versus, how end users actually use their IT. So, that's something for me that I need to be aware of. But one of the things that I am discovering in the instructional design world is when, we are looking at appropriate software and ensuring that it is accessible, we are actually finding that many of the softwares, Adobe Storyline, Update, or Lectora, Lectora, doesn't matter. When you look at they all claim to be accessible. They all claim to meet the Australian guideline or mainly the American 508 guideline. But however, when you go into their actual certificates, where the detail of what is accessible, what is it, you find that very few elements within that software are accessible. We've just done a test of the Adobe Ticket. There's a lot in that we cannot use because it just does not translate to assistive technologies. So we're back to pure instructional design. We're back to employing the principles of accessibility. And I'm wondering if anybody else might have experienced that, not necessarily with instructional design software, but with other software as well.
Thanks,
Well,
Megan. That's a great question.
Yeah, Megan, if I could just, because when I'm doing web design auditing, I do it as an end user. I will take they'll give me the end product and I'll go through and see what's accessible and what's not. And there have been quite a few times where the developers have come away absolutely shocked because they were told by a certain company or a certain developer or whatever that what they were putting into their code was going to be fully accessible. And then I come in as the little black duck and go, no, that doesn't work. No, that doesn't work. No, that doesn't work. By the way, who did you work with? So it's definitely a case of I'm never going to name names, but there are a lot of snake oil salesmen out there in the accessibility space who will tell you until they're blue in the face that what they give you is going to make everything fine. But at the end of the day, it may not even meet the most basic standards of accessibility. So you've just got to be as careful as you possibly can, because you may end up like poor Megan here, who's just had to basically hit stop and go back to square one, which is very unfortunate.
Maybe Tess, from you, do you think this goes back to like an educational piece? Really, is that people are claiming to meet WCAG or be accessible, and they don't really know what that means?
Sorry, Amanda. Sorry, did you say for me? Or?
Yes. Yeah, for you.
Okay, so your question is about that people aren't really familiar with the criteria of WCAG.
Yeah, so people are saying, what we're handing you is WCAG compliant, but maybe it's an educational piece and they don't really understand what that means.
It's difficult to say. I suppose, yes, I have, I have used, a variety of websites, and some of them are said to be more accessible than others. And yes, I mean, I suppose it's hard to say, but I would say that's probably right. That it's very easy to say that that a website or an app is WCAG compliant. But it might only be compliant. I mean, because WCAG, there's just the latest recommendations under 2.2. And so, what might have been compliant a few years ago, at least technically, times continue to change. And I suppose it's very easy for an organization to say, yes, my website's WCAG compliant. But the fact is, if it's difficult to use, if there aren't enough headings or links, or the checkboxes don't work, or the alt text doesn't work, basically what it all comes down to, and I think maybe this is a case of a lot of automatic testing, because you're never really going to know if your website is WCAG compliant or is user friendly for people with a variety of disabilities unless you test it with a variety of disabilities. I mean, I've done quite a lot of freelance testing in my time, and I've found that some things that you know are not insurmountable obstacles for me. You know, like pop-ups and too much information with too little, you know, where the website structure is all over the place and there's not enough headings or links or buttons, you know, would be an absolute nightmare for somebody who, you know, might have had a cognitive disability. So unless you test a website or an application with people with a variety of disabilities and a variety of needs who use a variety of different technologies, you're never really going to know if it's WCAG compliant or not.
Absolutely. And I know that Bree has added a list of OZeWAI consultants who are part of OZeWAI and have gone through our code of conduct and ethics. Kylie, what do you think about the education piece around WCAG saying that, you know, websites particularly were WCAG compliant, or even vendors going out and telling clients, and clients believe it because how do they know otherwise?
Yeah, look, there can be a lot of misinformation, and you do need to really look into that. But what you've got to keep in mind is if it doesn't work for your demographic, they're not going to use it. They're not going to use your system. So if you saw my bio, they call me the Hairbo hippie. I have more than 50 hairbos. I love them. And I've boycotted 3 different hairbo places just simply because when I've given them feedback, you know, I couldn't increase their text size without it running over each other. Okay, so it looks like hieroglyphics. I couldn't read it. I couldn't put an order through. I couldn't handle anything. And when I reached out to them and I said to them, you know, this doesn't work, their response was, but no one just increases text size. It's like, use your device soon. And I was like, well, no, that's not how I operate. And, you know, that's one of the things people, you know, I have stopped, I had a Zoom membership and I let that cancel because I couldn't use their registration form. And like I said, my use of technology and assistive tech is very, very small. It's not, you know, I'm not using a screen reader every day and finding that, you know, running into really serious problems. But for me, it is challenging. And if I have to spend the extra time to figure it out, I just won't do it. I've changed banks because of problems like that. Like people do walk away. So you really do need to look at that education. And there's plenty of organizations that can help you and your teams with education. And, you know, I won't say anything because, you know, we're all affiliated with different companies. But as Bree's put in the chat, you know, OZeWAI have their own consultant directories. But there's a lot of stuff that's just out there as well. I mean, there's things out by the W3C. There are, you know, free programs. Just if it's something that you're new to, have a chat to someone that is an expert and see what they can point you in the direction of. And, you know, even have a chat with your developers. People often won't, you know, a lot of people aren't going to put their hand up and say, oh yeah, I've got a disability and I can test your product if they're in the organization, because it can be a little bit daunting and there's not always psychological safety. But if you foster that environment, I reckon you'll find a lot of people that are using different assistive tech that you never would have considered.
Absolutely. If I could just piggyback quickly on what Kylie just said there, with regards to giving up memberships or whatever because something isn't working for me. What I do is I put something to what I call the 5-minute test. If I find that a website's inaccessible, I will do a solid 5-minute run of trying to figure out how to get around it, how to fix the problem. Maybe there are different ways of doing it. Maybe I can go in through a different page or something like that. But at the 5-minute mark, if I haven't been able to get through and I'm what you would call maybe an intermediate computer user, if I can't do it in 5 minutes, I'm done. I won't bother with it anymore. And accessibility wise, I've talked to the fine people at Paramount Plus many, many times over the past year, trying to get them to make their app more accessible for vision impaired users. I cancelled my subscription yesterday because they just won't listen and won't fix the problems to make it more accessible, like apps like Disney Plus and Netflix. They just won't do it. And as much as I don't want to, I've just had to give it up because the 5-minute test was passed and I just didn't work.
Really interesting. The impact it has on your impression of an organization when they're not willing to take you seriously when you say, hey, this isn't working for me.
Just
do you have a
amount
process? Scott, like when you have, so with Paramount, for example, did you have a process of like, when it fails a 5-minute test, here are the steps I'm going to take to try and get them to improve?
Okay, if the 5-minute test has been a fail, if I then move to a sliding scale of want, need, get. Do I want this? Do I need it? Do I have to have it? So I look at Paramount and go, they've got some great shows on there. There is some audio description. I'm not even going to get into the audio description issue around Paramount Plus, but they have some stuff on there that I do want to watch and things like that. Do I want to get it? Yes, I do. Do I need to get it? If I want to stay up to date with my Star Trek fandom, yes, I do need to get it. And do I want to get it, want to put myself through the issues of dealing with customer service and all that sort of thing? So I go through. First layer of customer service, you're just going to get an automated response. That's always going to be the answer. So I send my information, they send back an automated response. We work hard to give our customers the best possible experience, yada, yada, yada. Then I have to push through and try and speak to an actual human. The actual human gets on, I talk to them, I explain to them what's going on. They'll say, we look into it, we'll have a look, we'll see what's going on. They'll come back with really no answer. So then I have to sit back and go, okay, emotionally, is this worth my time? Because this is getting into what I call disability admin. It's extra work that you have to do simply because you're a person with a disability, okay? The website isn't working to your standards, to what you need for it to be able to work. Do you have the emotional ability, the spoons, whatever you want to call it, to be able to continue and fight to get what you want? And at the end of the day, I turned around and I said, look, I've been trying with this for a year now. I love my Star Trek. I love some of the stuff that Paramount has, but I just can't keep, you can't lick a watermelon into a different shape, basically. And I just had to give it up.
Fair enough. Tess, what about you? Do you have something similar to what Scott has, a 5-minute? I really do love this 5-minute test.
I wish I could say that I did. I really don't. Most of the time, I mean, as my computer, like Scott, I would probably say I'm an intermediate computer user. And so look, if there's a problem that I really can't get around, I will get someone else to help me with it. So I'm lucky with my NDA support workers, if I'm honest, I don't think I've ever challenged a business about their website or their application, and I really admire the courage and the advocacy of people who do. It's just something that I've never really had the emotional energy for, and I know that the more people who speak up and say, look, guys, your website or your application, I can't use it for these reasons, or I've had a lot more difficulty than I should have had to in using it. The more that happens, the better chance there is of actually change happening. I'm a little bit of a coward like that, and I don't do it so much. But again, in the same way with Scott, I give up, or I get someone to do it for me if I absolutely need to do it. But it is difficult, and I think that's probably why I saw something in the chat that said, isn't it the law that websites are WCAG compliant? I mean, yes, by law, websites and applications are meant to be accessible, user friendly, and if they're not, there's always the possibility of a lawsuit. But I don't know about anyone else here. I mean, you see cases like the case of Bruce McGuire and the Sydney Olympic Games. I don't think I would ever have that kind of courage, or the kind of energy, the kind of, courage of my convictions to actually go up against that. And I don't know whether that just makes me particularly spineless, or whether that's the experience that a lot of people have, because, often lives are, demanding, stressful, our day-to-day lives, we just get carried, we just get taken up with other things. And I really admire people who do, but I'm guessing that's probably why, a lot of companies probably get away with their websites and accessible and apps being inaccessible, I suppose, because it really does take a particular excellent kind of person to really challenge them.
It absolutely does. And we have seen very few lawsuits in Australia. So the Sydney Olympics obviously being one, and the Coles lawsuit as well being the other one. Listen, we're actually out of time. We have a minute to go. So really quickly, before I hand off to Bree, I want to say thank you to Kylie, Tess, and Scott for your insights and for joining us on this call. And I do apologize for the technology failures we had sharing the videos, but we'll again share your we'll share the agenda with the videos in there, so you can link through to those videos and have a look at people using their technology in the way that suits them best. And from me, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this conversation. I know we could go on forever, but I'll hand off to Bree now, and she can do a couple of closing remarks and remind you about what's happening next month.
Yeah, look, thanks everyone. What a wonderful session. We did have a little bit of a problem also getting Zoom links to some people, so we'll work on that for our future sessions as well. So I do apologise. Sorry, I got to you a bit late to respond. We will try and fix that issue, but please do the survey. Give us some feedback. Give us some ideas of topics. We're running a schedule for the next 6 months. 4th of December is Greg's still on the call here. I'm not sure if Greg, if you're still here. No, Greg's not here. Greg's joining us on the 4th of December along with Sharon Litchfield, and just waiting for another confirmation of what it's like to be an accessibility SME in government. So that's going to be a good one. And the one following that, whether it'll be December or January, we're looking at what it's like to be an accessibility SME to run a product or an industry external to government. So we're starting to kind of build into our obviously our professionals, finding out where those careers are guiding us. Please also join OZeWAI if you haven't already. There's quite a variety of different membership tiers. It all helps us support all these events that we run, or the partners that we also support, like Web Directions and Roundtable and all those kinds of events that are external, where we do have some options for in-person networking. So please consider joining if you haven't already. It all helps us do the support and the training in these sessions for you. Really appreciate it. Thanks everyone, and keep an eye out for the recording.
Thanks everyone.
Bye
Thank
all.
you.